Olivia Langston didn't believe in fate. She believed in control. In boardrooms and private jets, she decided outcomes before anyone else even saw the pattern forming. But control meant nothing the moment she froze in the middle of Newark Airport, coffee cooling in her hand, heart thudding hard enough to drown out the announcements around her. Because 20 feet away, by gate C7, next to a blinking vending machine, stood her ex-husband. And with him, two little girls she'd never met, her daughters. They were laughing, carefree, bright, whole. The smaller one, all freckles and golden curls, tugged at his sleeve, while the other stood taller, her expression serious, mirroring a face Olivia had once seen in the mirror. Olivia couldn't move, couldn't breathe. For 6 years, she'd built an empire out of silence. She'd told herself she'd left for their good, that walking away had saved them from the chaos inside her head. But now, staring at the family she'd abandoned, she realized how cruelly peace could look like punishment. Her assistant's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Ms. Langston, Zurich's expecting you in 4 hours. I've confirmed your remarks for—" Olivia ripped the device out of her ear. The noise of the airport rushed back in, the rolling of luggage, the mechanical whir of a departing plane, the distant hum of people moving forward. She hadn't moved at all. Elijah looked older, but not diminished. Time had carved gentleness into the lines of his face, though a faint limp shadowed his walk. His eyes, that warm copper she used to trace with her fingers, scanned the terminal lazily until, without warning, they found her. The world shrank. It wasn't shock in his gaze. It was recognition followed by something worse, something final. He didn't wave, didn't frown. He just tightened his grip on the girl's hands and turned away. The sound that left Olivia's throat wasn't quite a sob. It was smaller, more fragile, like a breath cracking under its own weight. Her phone buzzed. A reminder. Zurich flight boarding in 40 minutes. She blinked at the screen, the letters blurring. Her name, Olivia Langston, CEO of Aris Aviation, glowed from the boarding pass, a symbol of everything she'd chosen instead. The smaller girl, Leah, Lily, looked back once, curious. For a heartbeat, the child's eyes met hers, wide and bright with wonder, untainted by the years Olivia had missed. And then they were gone. The gate agent's voice cut through her trance. "Final call for Flight 241 to Salt Lake City." Salt Lake. That was where they were going. A laugh bubbled out of her, half disbelief, half surrender. Of all the cities in the world, it had to be one she could reach in a single connection. She felt for her phone again. Zurich was a world she'd built out of precision. Salt Lake was a wound she'd never cleaned. Her fingers trembled as she opened a message window. The contact name glared at her. Elijah Ford. She hadn't deleted it. She'd just buried it beneath 1,000 others. She typed 2 words she hadn't dared to in 6 years. "It's me." For a moment, she hovered over send. Logic screamed at her to delete it, to walk away before she shattered everything all over again. But then she remembered his hand on that child's shoulder, the quiet steadiness that used to anchor her when she was drowning. She hit send. The message whooshed away into the digital void. She stood there waiting for nothing, expecting nothing. Her chest ached with a hollow kind of relief, the pain of a door cracking open after years of pretending it was locked. A woman bumped into her shoulder, muttering an apology. Olivia barely heard her. Her gaze stayed fixed on the now empty gate where the man she'd once loved had disappeared with the 2 pieces of her heart she'd never held. She straightened slowly, smoothed the front of her coat, and turned toward the departures board. Salt Lake City, delayed 45 minutes. It was absurd, reckless, possibly unforgivable. But for once, Olivia didn't care about logic or headlines or market predictions. She walked to the counter and slid her passport across the desk. "I need a ticket on that flight," she said. The attendant smiled politely. "First class?" Olivia hesitated. For the first time in years, the word first felt meaningless. "Coach is fine." As the printer hummed, she caught her reflection in the plexiglass barrier. Perfect makeup, designer coat, diamond watch ticking precisely as it had for 6 empty years. But behind the polish, her eyes looked alive. When she finally took her seat on the plane, she checked her phone again. No reply. She should have expected that. She'd disappeared without explanation, without goodbye. The only note she'd left had said, "I can't be what they need right now." And she'd believed it, until she saw what right now looked like without her. The flight attendant approached. "Something to drink, Miss Langston?" Olivia shook her head. "No, thank you." Her voice sounded calm, but inside every nerve vibrated like an instrument tuned too tight. As the engines roared to life, she stared out the window, her pulse sinking with the hum beneath her feet. Control. That was what she'd built her life around. But control was the opposite of love. And as the plane lifted into the clouds, she realized this might be the first decision she'd ever made without controlling the outcome. For once, she wasn't flying toward a deal, a city, or a future crafted from ambition. She was flying toward a past that had never stopped waiting. The next morning, Salt Lake City greeted her with stillness, a strange, deliberate quiet that felt almost like disapproval. Olivia stepped out of the airport with her luggage and the same numbness that had followed her since takeoff. The mountains framed the city in clean, unyielding lines, like something that could see right through her. For once, she wasn't sure if she wanted to be seen at all. She checked into a small downtown hotel instead of the high-rise she usually favored. The receptionist didn't recognize her, and she didn't correct it. For the first time in years, anonymity felt like safety. In her room, she stood by the window overlooking the skyline, phone clutched in hand. Her message from the night before sat unanswered. "It's me." 2 words that had cost her everything and earned her nothing. She opened her laptop, muscle memory guiding her to work. Emails, forecasts, investor calls. Distraction? But the sight of her own company logo only filled her with exhaustion. Her success, once intoxicating, now looked hollow in the morning light. When her phone buzzed, her pulse spiked. A new message. From him. Elijah Ford. Why now? No greeting, no softness, just the kind of precision she used to respect in her boardroom, but hated hearing from him now. She stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. "Olivia, because I saw you at the airport. The girls too." A pause, 3 blinking dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. "Elijah, they don't know who you are." Her breath hitched. "Olivia, I didn't expect them to." Another pause, then, "Elijah, leave them be, Liv. They're happy." Liv. The name cracked through her like lightning. He hadn't called her that since before everything fell apart. She typed before she could stop herself. "Olivia, are you happy, Elijah?" No answer. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. She threw the phone onto the bed and pressed her palms against her temples. She'd come all this way, and maybe she deserved the silence. But something in his tone, the restraint, the distance, didn't sound like peace. It sounded like survival. By afternoon, she'd made a decision. If he wouldn't reply, she would find him herself. Elijah lived on the east side, in a quiet neighborhood nestled beneath the mountains. Olivia found the address from an old contact, Cameron Reed, her former aide, and the only person she trusted to find information without asking why. The house was modest. 2 stories, weathered siding, a garden trimmed with care. A red tricycle leaned against the porch, its handlebars glittering in the sun. Through the open window, she heard laughter, high and clear, unguarded. She parked a few houses down, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Then she saw him. Elijah stepped out onto the porch, his gait steady but slower than she remembered. He wore a light sweater and jeans, his hair flecked with gray. A faint tremor moved through his hand as he adjusted the collar. Her chest tightened. The file Cameron had sent 2 hours earlier flashed in her mind. Diagnosis. Early onset ALS. She'd stared at that word for minutes, pretending it wasn't real, pretending it was just another business problem she could fix with money or willpower. Now, watching him in the doorway, she realized it wasn't a report. It was the truth. The door opened behind him, and 2 small figures appeared, Ava and Leah. They ran barefoot into the yard, one carrying a stuffed rabbit, the other a soccer ball. Olivia leaned forward slightly, afraid to blink. Ava, the taller one, was careful and deliberate, her movements exact. Leah was chaos, laughing, spinning, falling into the grass. And Elijah, even with his shaking hands, followed them into the sunlight, his laughter mixing with theirs. A perfect picture of everything she'd lost. Her breath caught when Leah tripped over a sprinkler hose. Elijah moved quickly, too quickly. His leg buckled. He caught himself against the porch railing, wincing as he steadied his balance. Leah didn't notice, but Olivia did. Her instinct to run toward him was almost uncontrollable. Her hand reached for the car door before she stopped herself. What would she even say? "Hi, I'm the ghost who left you when you needed me most." Her phone buzzed in the passenger seat. Another message from Elijah. "Elijah, I know you're here." Her heart stopped. He turned then, looking straight at her car. She froze. He didn't look angry, just resigned. The same expression he'd worn at the airport. Her phone buzzed again. "Elijah, don't make this harder for them." Olivia's throat ached. She wanted to reply, to scream that she wasn't here to hurt anyone, that she didn't even know what she wanted except to see him breathing, moving, alive. But instead, she typed one line. "Olivia, please, just coffee. Once." Minutes passed. Leah ran back toward the house. Ava followed. Elijah lingered on the porch, unreadable. Finally, her phone buzzed again. "Elijah, Cafe by Liberty Park, 10 a.m. tomorrow." Her lungs released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. He was giving her one chance. When he turned and disappeared into the house, Olivia leaned back against the seat staring at the sky. 6 years of silence would not be undone by one conversation. She knew that. But for the first time since she left, she wasn't running from what she'd broken. She was walking toward it. And whether he forgave her or not, she would face the truth she'd buried too long. The next morning, the world felt strangely sharp, too bright, too cold, as if it knew Olivia was walking into something she wasn't ready for. She arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early. Her reflection in the window betrayed her effort. A sleek coat, minimal makeup, hair pulled neatly back. She looked composed, powerful, almost untouchable. But beneath the fabric and polish, her pulse thudded like panic trying to disguise itself as courage. Inside, the cafe was small and familiar in that universal way, all wood, coffee, and quiet. A woman laughed behind the counter, milk steaming in her hand. The smell of espresso and cinnamon curled through the air, bittersweet. Olivia chose a corner table facing the door and waited. At exactly 10:03, Elijah walked in. He was thinner than she remembered, though his shoulders still carried that quiet steadiness she used to lean on. His steps were slower now, deliberate. The cane he used wasn't decorative, it was necessary, but he moved with dignity, not defeat. When he spotted her, his mouth tightened, not quite anger, not surprise, something closer to bracing. He nodded once, then crossed the room. "Liv." The word was a ghost, soft, uncertain. She rose halfway. "Elijah." He gestured to the chair. "You look well." She sat back down. "You don't." The corner of his mouth twitched, the faintest echo of a smile. "You always did lead with honesty. And you always hated it," she said quietly. He looked down at his hands. "I didn't hate it. I just wasn't ready for what came after it." The silence between them thickened, full of 6 years of words that had nowhere to go. Olivia watched his fingers tremble slightly against his coffee cup. Her chest ached at the sight. "How long have you known?" she asked finally. "About a year," he said. "They caught it early, as far as early means anything for this." "And the girls? They know I get tired, that my hands shake sometimes." His eyes met hers, steady. "They don't know what it means. Not yet." She swallowed hard. "You should have told me." He let out a low laugh. "Told you? The woman who vanished without a trace? You made your choice, Liv. You can't walk out of one story and demand to be written back into the next." "I didn't walk out because I stopped loving you," she said, her voice shaking despite her effort. "I walked out because I was broken, because I didn't trust myself with any of you." He tilted his head slightly. "You think that makes it easier?" 6 years. I raised 2 little girls who asked me every night why their mother never called. I couldn't." "You wouldn't," he corrected, voice rougher now. "No," she said, meeting his gaze. "I couldn't. You remember what I was like after they were born. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was terrified all the time. I thought if I stayed, I would destroy them. Elijah's expression faltered, his anger cooling into something quieter, heavier. Postpartum? She nodded, barely breathing. Psychosis. It wasn't just sadness, Elijah. It was voices, shadows, fear that didn't belong to me. I checked myself into a clinic after I left. By the time I got out, you changed your number. His hand went still around his cup. I didn't know, he said softly. I didn't want you to. He looked at her, really looked this time, as if searching for the woman he'd once loved beneath the layers of armor she wore now. You should have trusted me. I couldn't even trust myself. He leaned back, exhaling. The fight drained out of him, leaving something raw behind. Do you know what it was like, he said, holding them, and every time one of them smiled, wondering if they'd look like you when they grew up, and hating that I couldn't decide if I wanted them to? Tears pricked her eyes. You had every right to hate me. I didn't, he said. That was the problem. I tried. God knows I tried. But every time Leah fell asleep on my shoulder, I thought, she should have seen this. Every time Ava asked about the stars, I thought, she would have known the answer. Olivia reached across the table before she could stop herself. Her hand found his, fingers trembling against the back of his palm. He didn't pull away, but he didn't hold her back either. I can't undo what I did, she said, but I can be here now. For you. For them. He looked down at their hands, at the contrast of her polished nails against his weathered skin. You think they'll just let you? I don't expect that, she said. I'll earn it, whatever it takes. Elijah's eyes softened, pain and memory blending into something that almost looked like mercy. They're good girls, he said. Leah forgives fast. Ava, not so much. I know, she whispered. Then don't give her a reason not to try. She nodded. I won't. He withdrew his hand, leaning back slowly. Thursday morning, Liberty Rink. They have lessons before school. Come if you mean what you say. Watch if that's all you can do. She blinked, uncertain. You're inviting me. I'm giving you a chance, he said quietly. One. He stood, bracing himself with his cane. You walk away again, Liv. And that's it. No more ghosts. No more apologies. She stood too, her voice small. I won't walk away. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once and turned toward the door. As he stepped into the sunlight, Olivia stayed frozen in place. The scent of cinnamon lingered in the air. The table between them was empty now, but for the first time in years, the silence inside her wasn't. It was full of memory, of ache, of something she thought she'd buried, but hadn't. It was hope. Thursday morning came wrapped in sunlight and nerves. Olivia parked near Liberty Rink, fingers tight around the steering wheel, watching frost glisten across the windshield. The world outside felt lighter than the storm inside her chest. For 6 years, she'd imagined this moment in 1,000 variations. Reunion, confrontation, forgiveness, but not this. Quiet, ordinary morning light and her heart beating like it might not survive the hour. Through the glass doors, she saw children skating under the fluorescent glow of the rink. Their laughter echoed off the metal rafters, bright and effortless. And there, near the boards, stood Elijah, his cane propped against a bench, a thermos in hand, eyes following 2 girls gliding across the ice. Her girls. Leah's laughter reached her first, warm and unrestrained. She was spinning wildly, her pigtails flying. Ava skated beside her, graceful and controlled, moving with the kind of precision Olivia used to crave in everything she did. One twin born of chaos, the other of quiet calculation. She exhaled shakily and stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of ice and cocoa. Her heels clicked against the concrete before she remembered where she was and traded them for boots. When she turned toward the benches, Elijah was already watching her. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. But he nodded once, and that was enough. Morning, he said as she approached. Morning, she replied, her breath clouding between them. You made it. I said I would. He looked back toward the rink. I've heard that before. She didn't argue. She couldn't. The girls hadn't noticed her yet. She watched them weave around each other, Leah occasionally slipping, Ava effortlessly gliding forward. Elijah followed their movements with pride, softening the hard lines of his face. When Leah fell, he chuckled. Every time, he murmured. But she never stops. Olivia smiled faintly. She's brave. She's reckless, he corrected gently, though there was affection in it. Ava's the brave one, the quiet kind. A silence settled between them, comfortable and painful all at once. Olivia wanted to reach for his hand, to say something ordinary like, "You look tired," or "I missed you," but every word felt too fragile to risk breaking. "Do they know I'm here?" she asked. "They will." As if summoned, Leah spotted her. The little girl blinked, slowed, then nearly toppled as she waved furiously. "Dad! Dad! There's a lady who looks like—" She stopped herself, frowning, head tilting curiously. Elijah smiled. "That's her." Leah's eyes widened. "Her?" He nodded. For a second, Leah stood frozen in the middle of the rink, her mind processing the truth. Then she pushed off, skating clumsily toward the edge. "Mom?" she asked breathlessly. Olivia's knees nearly buckled. "Hi, sweetheart." Leah leaned on the barrier, grinning. "You came to watch us?" "I did." Ava glided over, slower, cautious. "Dad," she said quietly. "You said she—" "I said she needed time," Elijah interrupted softly. Ava's gaze flicked to Olivia, wary and sharp. "You've had a lot of time." "I know," Olivia said, her voice gentle. "And I can't get it back, but I'd like to earn what's left of it." Ava didn't answer. Leah, oblivious to the tension, reached over the barrier to grab Olivia's hand. "Come on, Mom! You have to skate with us." "Oh, I don't think—" "Yes," Leah insisted. "Dad says falling is part of learning." Elijah hid a smile behind his hand. "He's right," he said, echoing his daughter. "You'll fit right in." With a sigh, Olivia rented a pair of skates. The moment she stepped onto the ice, she regretted it. Her balance wobbled, arms flailing like a startled bird. Leah giggled uncontrollably. "You're doing it wrong." "Really?" Olivia gasped, gripping the rail. "I hadn't noticed." Ava skated circles around her. Perfect posture, perfect lines. "You have to stop overthinking," she said. "That's difficult for me," Olivia admitted. "Then stop trying to be perfect," Ava replied, and for a brief moment their eyes met. Something soft flickering between them before Ava turned away again. By the time the lesson ended, Olivia's knees ached, her pride was bruised, and Leah was still laughing. But something in her chest felt lighter, freer. As the girls changed their skates, Elijah sat beside her on the bench. "You're not terrible," he said. "I'm humiliated." He chuckled quietly. "That's progress." Olivia leaned back, breathless. "They're incredible." "They are," he said, his voice warm but tinged with weariness. "And they'll need you when it gets harder." Her heart tightened. "Elijah." He shook his head. "Not now. Just show up. That's enough." "I will," she said. "Every time." He looked at her then, not with anger, but with something she couldn't quite name. "We'll see." Leah bounded over, shoving a crumpled piece of paper into Olivia's hand. "It's for you." Olivia unfolded it. Crayon lines, 4 stick figures holding hands. One had orange hair. "Who's this?" she asked, smiling. Leah grinned. "You. I made it before you came, just in case." Olivia's throat closed. "Just in case I what?" "Came back." Ava tugged on Leah's sleeve. "We're going to be late, dummy." Elijah stood, gathering their bags. "Come on, girls. Say goodbye." Leah hugged her quickly, small arms warm and real. "You'll be here next week, right?" Olivia smiled through the ache. "Count on it." Ava lingered for a heartbeat longer, eyes searching Olivia's face before she finally nodded. "Okay." When they left, the silence in the rink felt different, no longer empty, but echoing with possibility. Olivia sat alone, staring at the drawing in her hands. The stick figures were simple, uneven, childlike, but they were connected, holding hands, smiling, together. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The following Thursday, the air at Liberty Rink smelled faintly of frost and cocoa again. But this time, Olivia didn't wait in the car. She arrived early, standing near the glass while the Zamboni swept slow circles across the ice. The world felt suspended between the hum of machinery and the quiet pulse of her heart. For 6 years, she had watched people move from behind the glass. Colleagues, competitors, strangers. Now she was here, breathing the same air as her daughters, learning that presence was its own kind of courage. When Elijah arrived, the girls spilled into the rink like sunlight. Leah's laughter echoed instantly, while Ava, ever composed, tugged her gloves tight and surveyed the surface with quiet concentration. Elijah noticed Olivia before the girls did. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. A nod, simple acknowledgement, was all he offered. Somehow it was enough. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, you look tired. You try chasing them around every morning." A laugh slipped out before she could stop it. It startled them both. By mid-practice, Olivia had found a spot on the bleachers. Leah, as always, treated skating like flight. No rules, just freedom. Ava, in contrast, skated like she was solving an equation. Every turn exact, every movement measured. When Leah stumbled and fell for the third time, she sat on the ice, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "Did you see that?" she called. Olivia grinned. "I did. You almost made it." Elijah chuckled beside her. "She thinks falling is part of the trick. Maybe she's right." He glanced at her, amused. "You sound like her." "God help us," she murmured. They watched in silence for a while. The girls circled again and again, their reflections skating along the glass. When Leah finally tired and flopped onto the bench, Ava stayed behind, repeating the same routine until she perfected the spin. "Do you ever stop pushing?" Olivia asked quietly. Elijah followed Ava's movement with his eyes. "She's like you. She thinks she's safest when she's in control." Olivia's smile faltered. "That's not safety. It's fear with better manners." He nodded slowly. "Maybe, but she's learning." "So am I," she said, barely audible. Elijah turned toward her then, his gaze steady. "I can see that." Before she could answer, Leah bounded over and tugged at Olivia's sleeve. "Mom, come skate again." "Oh, sweetheart, I'm not sure the ice has recovered from last time." "Please. Dad says you were better than you think." Olivia shot Elijah a skeptical look. "Did he now?" Elijah smirked. "I said you didn't break anything. That counts as better." "Encouraging," she said dryly, but she stood anyway. The skates felt foreign at first, the cold pressing through the metal into her bones. Leah held her hand, fearless as ever, dragging her out onto the ice. Ava hovered close, pretending not to watch. "Bend your knees," Leah instructed, her tone full of authority. "Yes, ma'am," Olivia said, suppressing a smile. When she wobbled dangerously, Leah's giggle rang out. "You're doing it!" Ava rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her grin. "Barely." Olivia steadied herself and tried again, her body remembering something about balance and surrender. The ice beneath her no longer felt hostile. It was alive, responsive. For a moment she forgot the ache in her chest, forgot the years between then and now. She stumbled, caught herself and laughed. Leah clapped. "You didn't fall." "I'm counting that as victory," Olivia said. When practice ended, the girls sat at the edge of the rink, kicking off their skates. Elijah packed their bags, moving slower than before, the tremor in his hand visible now. Olivia's eyes caught on it, worry tightening her throat. He noticed. "Don't." "Elijah," he cut her off gently. "Not in front of them." She nodded, her chest heavy. Leah was too busy humming to notice, but Ava's eyes flicked toward her father, sharp, observing. She didn't say anything, but her jaw tightened. Later, as the girls changed, Olivia helped braid Leah's hair. Her fingers were clumsy, all thumbs and hesitation. "Ow, you're pulling," Leah complained, but she was smiling. "Sorry," Olivia laughed. "It's been a while." Ava appeared behind them, silent for a moment. Then she reached out, wordlessly handing her a purple elastic. "Here," she said, "to hold it." Olivia took it carefully, her throat tightening. "Thank you." "It's for the braid, not you," Ava said quickly, but there was no sting in her voice, only quiet uncertainty. Olivia tied the braid, slow and deliberate. "Well," she said softly, "I'll take it either way." Afterward, they all walked to the cafe next door for cocoa. The girls sat together, whispering and giggling over whipped cream mustaches. Elijah stirred his drink absently, his hand trembling. Olivia pretended not to see. They love you, he said suddenly. Her head jerked up. They don't even know me yet. They know enough, he said. Leah forgives without asking. Ava watches before she decides. They get that from both of us. Olivia stared down at her cup. I don't deserve it. No one does, Elijah said quietly. You just show up anyway. She met his eyes, something inside her breaking open. Then I'll keep showing up. He smiled faintly. Good. Outside, snow had begun to fall again. Soft, patient, endless. The girls pressed their hands to the window, tracing shapes in the condensation. Olivia leaned back, watching them, a warmth spreading through her chest. The ache was still there, the guilt too, but it was changing shape, turning into something she could live with, something she could build from. For the first time in years, the woman who had walked away from everything didn't feel like a ghost. She felt like a mother finding her way home. Spring arrived slowly that year, the kind of season that crept instead of bloomed. The snow melted in uneven patches along the sidewalks. The trees hesitated before budding, and in the Ford household, life balanced on a fragile rhythm. Olivia had stopped staying in hotels. Her suitcase remained in Elijah's guest room, half unpacked, as if she couldn't yet admit permanence. Every morning she made breakfast with the girls, burnt toast, lopsided pancakes, messy joy, and every night she tucked them in, unsure who it comforted more, them or her. Elijah, though, was fading. It wasn't sudden. The signs were small at first, the tremor in his hand growing worse, the pauses in his speech lasting longer, the exhaustion settling in after the simplest tasks. Olivia tried not to hover, but every time she saw him drop a pen or stumble slightly, something inside her clenched. One morning she found him in the kitchen gripping the counter, his knuckles white. Elijah? He straightened slowly, forcing a smile. Coffee's ready. Her voice softened. You don't have to pretend. He met her eyes, something defiant in the exhaustion there. Liv, if I stop pretending, I stop living. She reached for his hand, steadying the mug he couldn't. Then let me help you live. He hesitated. The old Elijah, the proud one, the one she'd loved and feared losing, would have refused. But now, after a long silence, he nodded once. All right. That night, Olivia woke to a sound. Something sharp, something wrong. She ran to the hallway, the cold floor biting her feet. Elijah was on the floor by the piano, his cane knocked over, the lamp shattered beside him. Elijah! He tried to push himself up, his voice strained. Just lost my balance. Her heart raced as she knelt beside him. You should have called me. Didn't want to scare them, he murmured. Leah's small voice echoed down the stairs. Dad? Olivia turned. It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to bed. Ava appeared behind her sister, arms crossed, wide awake. He fell again, didn't he? The silence answered for her. Olivia met Ava's gaze. He'll be fine. I'll take care of him. Ava frowned. You're not a doctor. I don't have to be, Olivia said softly. I'm his family. Ava's eyes lingered on her for a moment, measuring, testing, before she nodded and guided Leah back upstairs. When they were gone, Olivia turned back to Elijah. Come on, she said gently. Let's get you up. He grimaced as she helped him to his feet, leaning against her shoulder for balance. When they reached the couch, he sank into it with a sigh, his breath shallow. You can't keep hiding this, she said. He looked at her, a weary half-smile ghosting across his lips. You're one to talk. She froze, guilt threading through her chest. He was right. She'd hidden once too, behind fear, behind pride, behind the idea that leaving could protect them. Not anymore, she whispered. I'm here now. He nodded, his eyes heavy. I know. The next few days were a blur of hospital tests and quiet waiting rooms. Leah colored on clipboards while Ava sat too still, her gaze fixed on the sterile floor tiles. Olivia spent most of the time holding her breath. When the doctor finally spoke, his tone was gentle but final. The progression's accelerating. He'll need more care soon. Olivia's voice wavered. How soon? Months, maybe less. She thanked him, though the word felt empty. Back in the room, Elijah was sitting up, smiling faintly when he saw her. You look like you're planning something. I'm planning to take you home, she said. Live? No arguments, her voice cracked. You gave me everything once. Let me give something back. He studied her for a long time before answering. You don't owe me anything. I know, she said. That's why I want to do it. Days passed, the house filled with quiet adjustments, new routines, new tenderness. Leah made a chart titled Dad's Good Days. Ava pretended to be unaffected, but Olivia caught her tucking a blanket over his lap more than once when she thought no one was looking. One afternoon when the girls were at school, Elijah asked her to sit by the piano. I started this before you left, he said, gesturing to a yellowed sheet of music. Never could finish it. She looked at the notes, half-formed, scattered like pieces of a sentence he never finished saying. What's it called? He smiled faintly. Didn't have a name. Maybe you'll find one. Olivia hesitated, then touched the keys. The melody rose softly, halting, fragile, but beautiful. She closed her eyes, and for the first time, she didn't play for perfection. She played for him. When she finished, he was smiling. You found it, he whispered. The missing part. What part? You. Her vision blurred. Don't say things like that. He laughed quietly. If not now, when? A week later, the school sent a flyer home. Family Story Day. Leah brought it to dinner, waving it like a treasure. Mom, you have to come read something. Please? Ava frowned. That's for little kids. Leah pouted. You're little. I'm 8. So am I. Olivia watched them bicker, smiling through tears. I'll do it, she said. Really? Leah squealed. Really? That night she sat at the kitchen table long after everyone else had gone to bed. The house hummed softly. The refrigerator, the wind outside, Elijah breathing steadily in the next room. She stared at a blank page before writing the first words of a story. It wasn't about power or guilt or loss. It was about a fox who got lost in the snow and found her way home by following the paw prints her cubs had left behind. And when she finished, she realized something simple and true. She hadn't come back to fix the past. She'd come back to stay. The morning of Family Story Day dawned with rain, the soft kind, the kind that blurred the world outside the kitchen window into watercolor shades of gray and gold. Olivia stood at the counter pouring coffee, the house still half asleep. The rhythmic tapping on the roof should have calmed her. Instead, her heart raced as if she were back in a boardroom before a major announcement. Only this time, her audience was a classroom of second graders. Elijah shuffled in a few minutes later, wrapped in his old gray sweater, his cane tapping gently against the tile. You're nervous, he said. She gave him a small, rueful smile. You'd think I was presenting to shareholders. He leaned against the counter, his hand trembling slightly as he lifted his cup. You always were more terrified of children than billionaires. That's not true. He raised an eyebrow. Fine, she sighed. Maybe a little. He chuckled, the sound soft and tired, but genuine. You'll be great. They'll love you. You sound awfully sure. I am, he said, because you're telling the truth this time. The words landed deep and she reached out, steadying his cup before it slipped. Their fingers brushed, and for a moment the world stilled. His eyes held hers, warm and alive despite the shadow of illness creeping closer each day. Go make them proud, he whispered. The school cafeteria smelled faintly of crayons, glue, and cafeteria pizza. Olivia sat in the small chair Leah had proudly reserved for her, knees bent awkwardly, watching the other parents shuffle papers and clear throats. Leah sat cross-legged at her feet, bouncing with excitement. Ava, 2 rows over with her class, tried very hard to look uninterested, but couldn't hide the faint smile tugging at her mouth. When it was Olivia's turn, she stood at the front of the room, palms slightly damp. She'd spoken to investors, heads of state, entire boards, but somehow this felt infinitely more important. She opened the small notebook in her hands and began to read. Once in a very quiet forest, she said softly, there was a fox who lost her way. The room quieted. She ran and ran until her paws hurt, trying to find the den she had left behind. But the snow had fallen and all the old trails were gone. Leah's eyes shone. Ava's hand stilled mid-page in her sketchbook. The fox thought she would never see her family again, Olivia continued, until one day she looked down and saw tiny paw prints in the snow, small and certain, leading her home. Her voice faltered slightly. She took a breath and finished. So the fox followed them, one careful step at a time, until she reached the place where she was meant to stay. Silence, then applause, small, uneven, full of warmth. When it was over, Leah threw her arms around her waist. "You did it, Mom!" Ava walked up slowly. "That story was about you," she said quietly. Olivia met her gaze. "And you?" Ava studied her for a moment, then nodded. "It was good." Coming from Ava, that was everything. That evening, Olivia sat at the piano, the rain still whispering outside. Elijah was in the next room resting. The girls were sprawled across the floor, drawing. Leah hummed, off-key and happy, while Ava concentrated on shading the edge of a heart she was pretending not to draw. Olivia's fingers moved over the keys, playing the melody Elijah had written years ago, the one that had become the quiet pulse of their home. The music faltered when she heard his voice. "You're getting better." She turned. He was leaning against the doorway, his expression soft, his body frail, but his eyes steady. "You should be resting," she said. "Not if I can listen to that." He walked slowly toward the piano and sank into the seat beside her. "Play the bridge," he said. She obeyed, her touch hesitant. "Like this?" He reached over, laying his trembling hand on hers to guide her. Together they found the rhythm, the old familiarity of it. When the final note lingered, he exhaled. "You finished it." "Maybe," she whispered, "but it's different now." "How so?" "It's softer." He smiled faintly. "That's what staying does to you." Her throat tightened. "You make it sound easy." He shook his head. "It's not, but it's worth it." They sat in silence, the rain outside blending with the slow tick of the clock. Finally he said, "Promise me something." "Anything. When I'm gone, don't stop playing. Don't turn the house into a museum of what we had. Keep it loud. Keep it messy. Keep them laughing." Her breath hitched. "Don't talk like that. Live." His voice was gentle, firm. "Promise me." Tears blurred her vision. "I promise." He smiled, leaning back, eyes closing briefly. "Good. That's all I ever wanted." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Olivia walked through the house quietly. Leah's artwork covered the fridge, smiling stick figures with orange hair. Ava's violin rested beside the couch, a bowstring frayed from practice. In the dim light, everything felt fragile, precious. She sat at the piano once more, opening the sheet music Elijah had left unfinished. In his handwriting, a line stood alone at the bottom. "If love is a song, let it play, even after I'm gone." Her tears fell freely now, blurring the ink. She placed her hands on the keys, whispering to the silence, "It's still playing, Eli." Then she began to play, softly, slowly. The notes filled the house, wrapping around the walls, the windows, the sleeping hearts inside. And though the rain kept falling, the sound of her music felt like sunlight, rising, steady, alive. The house woke before the sun that morning. Olivia stirred to the soft sound of Elijah coughing, a weak, uneven rhythm that she had come to dread. She rose without thinking, moving through the half-light of dawn. The air smelled faintly of rain and the vanilla candle Leah had left burning overnight. When she reached the living room, Elijah was sitting by the piano. He wasn't playing. His hands rested motionless on the keys, his gaze far away. The gray light made him look translucent, like he was already half a memory. "You should have called me," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Didn't want to wake you." "I don't sleep much anyway." "I know," he said softly. "You never did." She knelt beside him, placing her hand over his. "You're worse today." He didn't deny it. "It's getting harder to pretend." She swallowed the ache in her throat. "Then don't pretend." He turned toward her, his eyes still warm despite the weariness in them. "If I stop pretending, it means the end is near, and I'd rather keep lying a little longer." Tears threatened, but she blinked them back. "Then let's lie together," she said. He laughed quietly, the sound small but alive. "You always were good at negotiating impossible terms." Later that morning, the girls clattered down the stairs. Leah's chatter, bright as always, Ava's calm voice grounding it. They were heading to school, backpacks bouncing, hair still wet from rushed showers. Leah stopped when she saw her father on the couch. You're not coming to breakfast? Not today, kiddo. I'm saving my energy. Leah frowned. You promise you're okay? He smiled gently. I'm okay because you're okay. She seemed to accept that. Ava didn't. She lingered near the door, watching him. Her eyes, those same sharp, clear eyes that used to cut through Olivia, were unreadable now. Mom, Ava said quietly, can you take us? Olivia nodded. Of course. As they left, she turned back once. Elijah sat there in the half-light, still smiling. The day blurred into fragments, rain streaking down the car windows, the echo of school bells, Leah's laughter from the back seat. But even as life moved, a quiet dread followed Olivia everywhere. By afternoon, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, something final. She drove home early. The house was silent when she entered, too still. Elijah, she called. No answer. Her pulse quickened. She found him by the piano again, slumped slightly to the side, eyes closed, the faint rise and fall of his chest barely there. Panic surged, but training, habit, fear, love made her move gently. Elijah, she said softly, touching his shoulder. He stirred. Hey, she exhaled shakily. You scared me. Sorry, he whispered. Didn't mean to. He reached for her hand, his grip weaker than ever. Come sit. She sat beside him, and for a long time neither spoke. The rain pattered softly outside. Finally he said, I've been thinking about the girls, about what comes next. Olivia's throat tightened. Don't. Live. She looked at him, her composure crumbling. I can't. You have to, he said gently. They'll need you to be steady. They'll need you to remember who they are when I'm not here to remind you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You really think I can do this without you? He smiled faintly. You already are. The words broke her. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder, sobbing quietly. He wrapped his trembling arm around her as best he could, resting his chin against her hair. Hey, he murmured, voice barely above a whisper. Don't cry for what we're losing. Smile for what we found again. When she finally lifted her head, his eyes were half-lidded, heavy. Play something for me, he said. Her breath hitched. What? The song. Our song. You know the one. She hesitated, then moved to the piano. Her fingers trembled as they touched the keys. The melody rose, slow and fragile. Notes like falling rain. The house filled with sound, the kind that made memory feel like presence. As she played, Elijah closed his eyes. His breathing grew shallower, but his face was peaceful, lips curved in the faintest smile. When the final note faded, Olivia turned. Eli? His eyes opened, soft and clear. Beautiful, he whispered, and then quieter. Keep playing. She reached for him, but his hand had already fallen still. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sacred. The rain outside stopped as if listening. The house seemed to breathe once, then exhale. Olivia's hands shook as she touched his face, her tears falling freely now. You kept your promise, she whispered. You stayed. The days that followed blurred. The funeral was small, music, sunlight, and quiet words. Ava played his melody on the piano, her posture stiff but her expression calm. Leah cried openly, clutching a folded drawing she refused to let go of. Olivia stood at the front, hands clasped, heart heavy but steady. When it was her turn to speak, she didn't use a prepared statement or a eulogy. She just said, he taught me that love isn't what you run from. It's what you stay for. And that music never really ends. It just changes who plays it. Afterward, when everyone else had gone, she sat beside his resting place. The wind moved softly through the grass, carrying the faint sound of children's laughter from somewhere far away. I'll keep playing, she said quietly. Every day. For them. For you. Her voice caught, but she smiled through it. And I'll stay. I promise. She pressed her hand against the cool stone, the faint scent of rain still in the air. For the first time, staying didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. The first few weeks after the funeral passed in a haze of half-finished sentences and hollow routines. The house was quieter now, too quiet. Elijah's laughter no longer filled the mornings. The soft clatter of his cane no longer marked time in the hallways. Yet in small ways, his presence lingered everywhere. In the faint scent of his cologne on a sweater draped over a chair, in the mug by the sink he always forgot to wash, in the sheet music still resting on the piano, waiting for hands that would never return. Olivia moved through the days like someone learning to breathe again. The girls reacted to their father's absence differently. Leah asked questions, sometimes at night when the world was still. Where is he now? Does he still hear us? Can he see my drawings? Olivia answered the only way she could. Yes, sweetheart, always. Ava, though, was quieter. Too quiet. She went to school, did her homework, practiced piano, but there was a distance in her that hadn't been there before. She avoided eye contact, avoided talking about music. The house's silence seemed to mirror hers. One night, Olivia found her sitting alone at the piano, hands hovering over the keys but not pressing them. You can play, you know, Olivia said softly. He'd want you to. Ava didn't look up. It doesn't sound the same. No, Olivia admitted, it doesn't. Then why bother? Olivia stepped closer, kneeling beside her. Because it's not supposed to sound the same. It's supposed to sound like us now. Ava's eyes shimmered, but her fingers stayed still. I miss him. I do too. She waited, then added, You know, when I left all those years ago, I thought I was protecting you. But I wasn't. I was just afraid. Ava glanced at her then, something softening behind the guarded look. He told us you were sick. Olivia froze. He did. Ava nodded. He said you were trying to get better, that you'd come back when you could. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. He was right. I came back as soon as I knew how. For a long time they sat in silence. Then Ava whispered, Can you play it? The song? Olivia blinked. With you? Ava hesitated, then nodded. They began slowly, tentative notes finding their way into harmony. The melody that had once belonged to Elijah took new form under their hands, reshaped by absence, softened by love. When they finished, Ava exhaled shakily, her head dropping onto her mother's shoulder. It's different, she murmured. Olivia smiled through tears. It's ours now. As spring deepened, the world outside the house came back to life. Trees bloomed, the air warmed, people smiled again. But inside, the process of healing was quieter, slower, built on small moments. Morning pancakes that burned slightly but still tasted like love. Laughter returning in bursts, Leah insisting that they hang Elijah's scarf on the coat rack because he'll still need it when he visits. One afternoon while cleaning the study, Olivia found something folded between the pages of Elijah's music journal, a letter addressed to her. Her breath caught as she sat down to read. Liv, if you're reading this, it means the music has stopped for me, but I hope you're still playing. I never wanted you to come back out of guilt. I wanted you to come back because you were ready to forgive yourself. You've always been stronger than you thought. The girls are proof of that. They are your second chance, not your punishment. When it gets hard, look for the quiet places. You'll find me there, in every wrong note you play, in every laugh you didn't expect, in every sunrise you thought you didn't deserve. That's where love stays. Keep living, Liv. Stay. E. Her hands trembled as she folded the letter, pressing it to her chest. For the first time since his death, she didn't cry. She smiled instead, a small, trembling smile that felt like light breaking through clouds. Weeks later, the girls had their first recital without him. Olivia helped them dress, smoothing Leah's hair and adjusting Ava's bow tie. The performance hall was small, filled with parents and teachers, the hum of nervous excitement hanging in the air. When the twins took their places on stage, Olivia's heart swelled. Leah's violin trembled at first, then steadied. Ava followed on piano, her fingers sure. Together they played the piece Elijah had written, the one Olivia had finished. The melody rose and fell, carrying years of memory within it. The audience disappeared. It was just them, a family of three playing for the one who taught them how to stay. When the last note faded, there was a pause, then thunderous applause. Leah beamed, bowing dramatically. Ava looked toward her mother. Olivia stood, clapping through tears. That night, as they drove home, Leah fell asleep in the back seat, clutching her violin case. Ava stared out the window, watching the city lights streak by. "Mom," she said quietly, "do you ever think he's listening?" Olivia glanced at her. "I don't have to think, I know." "How?" she smiled. "Because every time we play, it feels like he's still here." Ava nodded, the faintest hint of a smile ghosting across her lips. "Then I'll keep playing too." The car fell silent again, but it wasn't an empty silence anymore. It was full of memory, of sound, of everything that had once been lost and found again. As they turned down the familiar street, Olivia looked at the house glowing softly in the distance. For the first time, it didn't feel haunted. It felt like home. Summer arrived with a quiet kind of warmth, the kind that doesn't demand to be noticed, only felt. The grass grew thick in the yard, the roses bloomed without permission, and for the first time in years, the house sounded like laughter again. Olivia sat on the porch one morning, a mug of coffee in her hands and sunlight painting gold across the world. The wind carried the faint sound of the girls practicing in the living room. Ava's piano steady and precise, Leah's violin wild and free. The melody wasn't perfect, but it was alive, and that was enough. Every note filled the house with something she thought she'd lost forever: continuity. Life had gone on, not as it was, but as it was meant to. She glanced to her left. Elijah's scarf still hung on the back of his chair, just as Leah insisted it should. She couldn't bring herself to move it, not because she was stuck in grief, but because it had become part of their rhythm, like the empty piano bench beside her each night, a silent companion to the music that would never stop playing. The door creaked open behind her. Ava stepped outside, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Mom, Leah says you're supposed to help us with our next song." Olivia smiled. "Is that so?" Ava nodded. "It's called Home Again. We wrote it together." "Did you now?" "She wrote the messy part," Ava said dryly, jerking a thumb toward the living room. "I fixed it." Leah's voice drifted through the door. "You ruined it," Olivia laughed. All right, let's hear it." Inside, sunlight spilled across the piano keys. Leah perched on a stool, her violin ready, while Ava adjusted the sheet music. It was full of scribbles and corrections, hearts drawn in the margins, and Elijah's handwriting faintly copied on the last page. "If love is a song, let it play." Olivia's throat tightened, but she kept her smile steady. "Okay," she said. "Show me what you got." They began to play. It started softly, Ava's chords grounding the melody while Leah's violin danced above it, playful and bright. The tune wasn't polished. It stumbled, hesitated, found its footing again. But as it grew, it became something else, a patchwork of every emotion they had lived through: joy, grief, love, forgiveness. When the final note faded, Leah turned expectantly. "Well?" Olivia's voice was gentle. "It's beautiful." Ava frowned slightly. "It's not finished yet." Olivia shook her head. "Neither are we." Leah tilted her head. "You mean like we're still writing it?" "Exactly." Ava smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried understanding far beyond her years. "Then maybe that's the point." That evening, the three of them walked to the park, the same one where Elijah used to bring the girls to skate in winter. The summer air hummed with cicadas, and the sky stretched wide and soft. Olivia carried a folded blanket and a small notebook. Ava brought her violin. Leah insisted on carrying the old thermos Elijah used to take everywhere. They spread the blanket near the pond, the water reflecting streaks of pink and orange. Leah twirled barefoot through the grass while Ava tuned her violin, the bow catching glimmers of light. "Can we play it here?" Leah asked. Olivia nodded. "He'd like that." Ava lifted her bow. "Ready?" They began again, this time outside where the music could rise freely into the open air. The melody echoed across the park, carried by the breeze. It wasn't perfect. A few notes slipped, laughter interrupting now and then. But it was the kind of imperfect that mattered, the kind that belonged only to the living. When they finished, Leah flopped onto the grass, sighing dramatically. "Dad would have said we need more practice." Ava smiled faintly. He would have been right. Olivia lay back beside them, watching clouds drift lazily overhead. "He'd also say it's perfect the way it is." Leah grinned. Because he loved us too much to tell the truth. Exactly. They laughed together, the sounds soft and bright, blending into the evening air. Later, as the stars began to appear, Olivia opened her notebook. Inside was Elijah's letter, the one she kept close always. She read it silently, the words now etched in her heart. Keep living, Liv. Stay. Ava noticed and leaned closer. Do you still miss him? Every day, Olivia said. But missing him isn't the same as losing him. Leah frowned. What do you mean? He's still here, she said, gesturing to the night around them. In the music, in the way we laugh, in how you two fight and then make up 5 minutes later. He's in everything good we keep alive. Ava's eyes glistened, though she didn't speak. Leah reached for her mother's hand, curling her small fingers around it. Olivia smiled. He used to say love was like a song that never ends. It just changes who plays it. Leah looked up at the stars. Then we're still playing. Olivia squeezed her hand. Always. They sat there for a long time, the three of them, under a sky that shimmered with memory. Somewhere nearby, wind rustled through the trees, a whisper of music only they seemed to hear. And as the night deepened, Olivia felt something she hadn't in years. Peace that wasn't borrowed, but earned. She had come home not to the past, but to the life still waiting to be lived. She closed her eyes, the faint melody of Home Again drifting through her mind, and whispered into the wind, Thank you, Elijah. We'll keep the song going. The breeze stirred, warm and steady, brushing her cheek like a familiar hand. And for the first time since losing him, she didn't cry. She smiled, because love hadn't ended. It had simply found a new verse.